What happens when science fiction stops being safe, entertaining fantasy and starts pressing directly on cultural fear, political anxiety, and existential dread? In the 1970s, the genre mutated, budgets shrank, censorship weakened, and filmmakers stopped reassuring audiences. These films did not comfort viewers. They unsettled them. They disturbed them. They left people silent in theater seats. Number 12. Phase 4. 1974. Phase 4 is not loud. It does not scream at the audience. Instead, it watches. This is science fiction as slow creeping paranoia where intelligence itself becomes the threat. The film imagines a mysterious cosmic event that suddenly accelerates the evolution of ants, turning them into hyper-organized problem-solving entities capable of architecture, strategy, and warfare. Humanity is not attacked directly. It is studied, tested, outsmarted. Director Saul Bass, famous for his graphic design, approached the film like an art experiment rather than a genre picture. Dialogue is sparse. Long stretches are dominated by insect macro photography that feels alien and invasive. Audiences in 1974 were not prepared for a science fiction film that refuses to explain itself clearly. There is no comforting hero arc, no explosive victory, only growing dread as humans realize they are no longer the dominant intelligence on Earth. What truly disturbed viewers was the implication that evolution has chosen something else. The ants are calm, rational, and unified, while humans are divided, fearful, and violent. The film suggests humanity is obsolete, not through catastrophe, but through inefficiency. The infamous original ending, which was cut from the theatrical release, only deepened this unease, presenting surreal imagery of a future shaped entirely by non-human intelligence. Phase 4 left audiences unsettled because it removed emotion from the threat. No rage, no malice, just logic. That idea lingered long after the credits rolled. It is science fiction that feels less like fantasy and more like an accusation. Number 11. Zardoz, 1974. Zardoz looks absurd at first glance, and that is precisely why it disturbed people so deeply. Sean Connery appears in a bright red costume, delivering lines from a floating stone head that screams about guns and death. Audiences laughed at first. Then the film kept going. What follows is a deeply unsettling vision of a post-apocalyptic world divided between brutal mortal laborers and immortal elites who have engineered eternal life. These immortals live in boredom, sexual detachment, and emotional decay. Violence is forbidden. Death is impossible. Meaning has evaporated. The film asks a terrifying question. What happens to humanity when survival is no longer required? The extremity of Zardoz lies not in gore or shock, but in its philosophical cruelty. Immortality is portrayed as a curse. Intelligence becomes stagnant. Desire becomes hollow. The film dismantles the fantasy of utopia and replaces it with existential rot. Audiences expecting adventure found themselves trapped in a slow, suffocating meditation on purpose and decay. The imagery is surreal and confrontational. Brutal executions sit beside ritualistic sexuality and cold, detached dialogue. Nothing is framed as safe or aspirational. Zardoz refuses to guide the viewer emotionally. It leaves them lost, uncomfortable, and questioning their own assumptions about progress. In the 70s, this was extreme. Science fiction was supposed to imagine better futures. Zardoz instead suggested that the ultimate future is spiritual death. That idea disturbed audiences far more than monsters ever could. In number 10, The Andromeda Strain, 1971. The Andromeda Strain terrified audiences because it felt real. There are no aliens with faces, no dramatic villains. The threat is invisible, scientific, and utterly indifferent to human life. A microscopic organism from space wipes out an entire town in minutes, leaving bodies frozen in strange poses. The horror is clinical, methodical, and unemotional. Director Robert Wise presents the film like a documentary. Long scenes are devoted to procedure analysis and debate. Computers malfunction, systems fail, scientists argue. This realism made the threat feel plausible. Audiences were not watching fantasy, they were watching a potential future. The extremity of the film lies in its restraint. There is no dramatic score guiding emotions, no heroic speeches. The scientists are competent but flawed. They make mistakes. They panic. One wrong decision nearly ends the world. The film emphasizes how fragile human control really is when facing forces beyond understanding. The climax does not deliver triumph. It delivers narrow survival by accident. Humanity is spared not through brilliance, but through luck. That ending left audiences shaken. It suggested that extinction could arrive quietly without warning, without villainy, and without justice. At the height of the Cold War and the space race, this film struck a nerve. It transformed scientific progress from hope into threat. That shift made the Andromeda Strain one of the most deeply unsettling science fiction films of the decade. Number 9. Soylent Green, 1973. Soylent Green does not explode into terror. It grinds the audience down. The future it presents is hot, crowded, filthy, and exhausted. Overpopulation has crushed privacy, dignity, and hope. People sleep in stairwells. Food is rationed. Clean water is a luxury. This is not a distant fantasy world. It feels like tomorrow. Charlton Heston plays a detective who moves through this collapsing society with visible fatigue. Nothing shocks him anymore. Violence is routine. Corruption is assumed. The extremity of the film lies in how normalized collapse has become. Humanity has not fallen in a dramatic event. It has simply worn itself out. The film slowly reveals its central horror through investigation rather than spectacle. Corporations control food supply. The poor are disposable. Assisted suicide is presented as peaceful and humane. These scenes are deeply unsettling because they are quiet, respectful, and beautiful. Death is marketed as comfort. Then comes the revelation. The truth behind the world's food supply lands like a punch to the chest. It reframes every previous scene. Audiences in the 70s reacted with shock, disbelief, and silence. The ending does not resolve the horror. It screams it into the void. Soylent Green freaked people out because it suggested morality collapses before society does. When survival becomes impossible, ethics are redefined. The film leaves viewers asking not what would happen if this future arrived, but whether it already had begun. And number 8. Invasion of the Body Snatchers, 1978. Few films weaponize paranoia as effectively as Invasion of the Body Snatchers. This version strips away optimism entirely. The threat is not invasion by force, it is replacement. Friends, lovers, and neighbors are quietly duplicated while they sleep. The copies look identical, but feel nothing. San Francisco becomes a city of whispers, glances, and growing suspicion. The extremity lies in how quickly trust evaporates. Anyone could already be gone. Emotion becomes evidence of humanity. Calmness becomes terrifying. The film builds dread through restraint. There are no epic battles, just small, horrifying moments when a loved one suddenly speaks with unfamiliar coldness. The world does not end loudly. It empties itself. The ending is one of the most disturbing in science fiction history. It offers no escape, no resistance, no hope. Audiences left theaters stunned by the final image, which suggested that awareness itself was useless. Released during a decade defined by political scandal, social fragmentation, and cultural mistrust, the film tapped into something raw. It suggested conformity was not imposed. It was welcomed. This is science fiction that makes the audience doubt not the future, but the present. That is why it haunted viewers long after release. Number 7. The Man Who Fell to Earth, 1976. The Man Who Fell to Earth is science fiction stripped of adventure. There is no invasion, no conquest, just an alien who arrives with hope and is slowly destroyed by humanity. David Bowie plays the alien with haunting fragility. He is brilliant, compassionate, and completely unprepared for human excess. Alcohol, television, sex, and corporate greed erode his purpose piece by piece. The extremity here is emotional rather than violent. The film presents Earth as more alien than the stars. Human behavior is portrayed as chaotic, addictive, and cruel. Technology does not save the visitor. It traps him. Corporations exploit his knowledge. Governments imprison him. Society consumes him. Audiences expecting spectacle found themselves watching a slow psychological collapse. Time fractures. Scenes drift. Logic dissolves. The film mirrors the alien perspective by refusing to follow conventional narrative comfort. The horror comes from recognition. This is not a story about an alien failing to understand humans. It is about humanity being fundamentally incompatible with innocence. The ending offers no redemption. The alien survives but is broken, isolated, and numbed. His mission fails not through resistance, but through seduction. In the 70s, this was deeply unsettling. Science fiction was supposed to imagine progress. This film suggested humanity corrupts everything it touches. Number 6. A Clockwork Orange, 1971. A Clockwork Orange is not futuristic because of technology. It is futuristic because of psychology. Stanley Kubrick imagined a society where violence is no longer punished through justice, but erased through conditioning. The result is a film that feels like an ethical nightmare disguised as science fiction. The extremity of the film lies in its emotional assault. The audience is forced to inhabit the mind of a violent criminal, not to sympathize, but to observe how easily morality can be rewritten. Alex is monstrous, yet charismatic. His crimes are horrific, yet staged with cold precision. Viewers are never allowed comfort. When the state intervenes, the horror shifts. Free will is stripped away in the name of order. Alex becomes incapable of choice. The government does not reform him. It rewires him. Violence becomes sickness. Obedience becomes cure. Audiences in the 70s were shaken not just by the imagery, but by the implications. The film suggests that a peaceful society achieved through control is more terrifying than a violent one born of choice. The future presented is clean, efficient, and morally hollow. The film refuses to provide justice. Victims do not find closure. Authority figures are corrupt. Rehabilitation is weaponized. By the end, viewers are left asking whether humanity without choice is still humanity at all. This was science fiction that attacked the audience directly. It did not warn about tomorrow. It questioned whether civilization itself was worth saving. Number 5. Alien, 1979. Alien detonated into theaters like a nightmare from deep space. Audiences expected adventure. What they got was terror. The film transformed the science fiction setting into a haunted house, where corridors replaced hallways and space itself became suffocating. The extremity comes from vulnerability. The crew are not soldiers. They are workers. They argue about pay, complain about conditions, and follow procedure. This realism grounds the horror. When the alien arrives, it does not roar or announce itself. It stalks silently, growing stronger with each encounter. The creature is pure biological terror. It violates bodies, reproduces through trauma, and kills without emotion. The famous chest-bursting scene shattered audience expectations of what could be shown on screen. Viewers screamed. Some walked out. No one forgot it. What truly unsettled audiences was the film's worldview. Space is not inspiring. It is hostile. Corporations value profit over human life. Survival is accidental, not heroic. The final act strips everything down to one woman, one monster, and the void. There is no victory celebration, only escape and exhaustion. Alien redefined how extreme science fiction could be by merging existential dread with physical horror. It proved that the future was not bright. It was dark, cold, and indifferent. Number 4. Dawn of the Dead, 1978. Dawn of the Dead looks chaotic, loud, and violent, but beneath the gore lies a deeply disturbing vision of societal collapse. Zombies overrun the world, not through intelligence, but persistence. Humanity does not fall because monsters rise. It falls because it refuses to change. The shopping mall setting is the film's cruelest idea. Survivors barricade themselves inside consumer paradise, pretending civilization still exists. Zombies wander aimlessly, repeating habits from life. Consumption continues even after death. The extremity lies in the film's tone. Violence is constant, casual, and sometimes darkly comedic. Death becomes routine. Moral lines blur. Survival turns people selfish, paranoid, and cruel. Audiences in the 70s were shocked by the level of gore, but even more disturbed by the satire. The film suggested modern life was already empty. The apocalypse simply removed the illusion. There is no rescue, no restoration, just movement from one fragile shelter to another. Civilization is not rebuilt, it rots. Dawn of the Dead frightened audiences because it made them recognize themselves in the ruins. That recognition hurt more than the violence ever could. Number 3, Death Race 2000, 1975. Death Race. 2000 looks outrageous on the surface, but its extremity runs far deeper than cartoon violence. Set in a future America ruled by authoritarian spectacle, the film presents a society where mass murder is not only legal, but celebrated as entertainment. Drivers compete in a televised cross-country race, scoring points for killing pedestrians. Children, the elderly, and the disabled are assigned bonus values. The crowd cheers. The film freaked audiences out because it was funny. Laughter became complicit. Viewers found themselves reacting to scenes of grotesque violence with amusement, then discomfort, then shame. That emotional whiplash was deliberate. Director Paul Bartel framed the film as satire, but refused to soften its implications. This was not exaggeration. It was escalation. The world of Death Race 2000 feels disturbingly plausible. Media distracts the population. Patriotism masks cruelty. The government uses spectacle to channel aggression away from rebellion. Violence becomes civic duty. Morality becomes obsolete. Unlike many dystopian films, the future here is not bleak and gray. It is colorful, loud, and absurd. That brightness makes the horror sharper. The killing is not hidden. It is marketable. Audiences in the 70s recognized echoes of real-world media trends, rising celebrity culture, and political manipulation. The idea that a society could normalize brutality through entertainment struck a nerve. The film offers no redemption arc. Resistance exists, but is easily absorbed into the spectacle itself. Revolution becomes another show. Death Race. 2000 disturbed audiences because it suggested the future would not arrive with oppression boots and guns, but with applause and smiling hosts. That idea felt uncomfortably close. Number 2. The Wicker Man, 1973. While often labeled folk horror, The Wicker Man operates as science fiction through ideology and social engineering. It presents a closed society that has deliberately rebuilt belief morality and ritual around survival logic. Science has not failed here. It has been replaced. Sergeant Howie arrives on the island armed with faith law and reason. None of it matters. The community operates under a different system, one where sacrifice is logical, necessary, and celebrated. The extremity lies in inevitability. From the moment he arrives, the outcome is sealed. The film unfolds politely. No one raises their voice. No one hides intent. That calmness is terrifying. The islanders are not mad. They are rational within their worldview. They have calculated cost and benefit and chosen sacrifice. Audiences were unprepared for the ending. There is no last-minute rescue. No revelation that stops the ritual. The community does not collapse under guilt. It sings. What unsettled viewers most was the film's refusal to frame the islanders as villains. Their system works. Crops grow, society functions, the sacrifice is the price. In the 70s, amid cultural shifts, questioning religion, authority, and tradition, the film struck deep. It suggested morality is not universal. It is engineered. The Wicker Man freaked audiences out because it removed moral certainty. It suggested that in the right conditions, atrocity becomes duty. That realization lingered long after the final flames rose. Number 1. The Texas Chainsaw Massacre, 1974. The Texas Chainsaw Massacre is not science fiction in setting, but it functions as science fiction in impact. It presents a world where society has failed entirely, leaving behind economic ruin, industrial decay, and feral survivalism. This is the future stripped bare. The film feels real. There is almost no music. The camera work is harsh. The heat feels oppressive. Violence is sudden, brutal, and unresolved. There are no explanations, no comfort. What freaked audiences out was sensory overload, screaming engines, metal doors, slamming meat hooks, grinding machinery. The film assaults the viewer physically. People reported feeling exhausted, shaken, and disoriented. The extremity lies in implication. Very little is shown directly. The mind fills in the rest. The family are not supernatural monsters. They are remnants of economic collapse, displaced workers who adapted by becoming predators. Released during a decade of oil crises, industrial decline, and social anxiety, the film felt prophetic. Civilization was not destroyed by aliens or war. It simply rotted. Audiences walked out stunned. Some believed it was real. Others felt dirty for watching it. That reaction was unprecedented. The film ends not with resolution, but escape into uncertainty. Survival is temporary. Trauma is permanent. As a closing note for 70s extremity, this film leaves no room for optimism. The future is loud, cruel, and waiting. The 1970s transformed science fiction into confrontation. These films did not offer hope or spectacle. They stripped away comfort, exposed fear, and challenged morality. They suggested the future was not distant or alien. It was already forming around us. That is why they still unsettle audiences today.